friends. By now, I bet you've colored an amazing picture, created a cool drawing, or maybe constructed an awesome cut paper collage that you're really proud of and you can't wait to show it off. You could just put tape loops on the back of your paper and stick it to your walls, but that doesn't look very professional. Another option would be to affix your artwork to a piece of black construction paper or maybe another color. This creates a nice border around your piece, but it's still pretty flimsy and your artwork would likely get wrinkled or ripped or dirty if it was left hanging like this for very long. So today I want to show you a third option. This is an affordable DIY hack for creating colorful frames to hang your paintings gallery style. Okay, so for this project, you will need a piece of cardboard that's cut just a few inches wider than your artwork. I like cereal boxes because they're lightweight and they're easier to cut than corrugated cardboard. But any box will work as long as it's larger than your artwork. There can't be any folds or creases in your cardboard. You'll also need a scissors, tape. Blue painter's tape works really well, but duct tape or masking tape will work too. You'll need some string, a ruler, maybe, some Mod Podge. But don't worry if you don't have Mod Podge, because Elmer's school glue will work pretty well as a substitute. You're going to need a bowl for your Mod Podge. I use these disposable styrofoam bowls, but I wash them out and use them over and over and over again. Lastly, you'll need a large paintbrush. Use an old brush for this project. It doesn't have to be a good brush, but it does have to be clean. Lastly, you'll need art supplies. I'll be using markers, colored pencils, and crayons, but you could also use acrylic or tempera paint. Watercolor paint will not work very well covering cardboard. Oil pastels will work okay if you have them. Step 1 is to cut your cardboard to the size that you need. Like I said, I like to use cereal boxes, and I'm probably going to be able to get at least 2 picture frames out of every box. You can ask someone to help you with this step if you don't feel comfortable cutting the box yourself. As I said before, your picture frame should be a few inches wider than your artwork so that there's a nice sized border around your picture. Don't worry if your cardboard isn't cut perfectly straight. I happen to like the look of the irregular edges, but if you want your lines to be straight, you can measure your cardboard and draw out your frame before you cut it. All right, so I'm going to put this other piece aside right now. I'll probably use that again for another frame. So now that I've cut my box, I want to make sure that I double check to make sure that my artwork will fit on the size frame that I've cut. Right now it looks like the sides of my frame are wider than the top and the bottom. That's okay if you like it like that, but I think I'm going to trim my sides down just a little bit so they're slightly more even. Again, I'm not going to measure because it doesn't bother me that much to have uneven sides. I'm also going to trim off some of this top that got a little bit jaggedy when I cut it, because I don't want anyone to get a paper cut if they touch my frame. Just a little bit off of both sides, actually. Okay. Now, always important to keep checking before you're cutting to make sure that you haven't cut away too much. You can make a small mark where you need to cut your line. And it doesn't really matter what color you use because we are going to be coloring over any marks that we make anyway. My frame is cut to size. Looks good, looks good. So now we are going to color our frame using the easy advanced coloring techniques that I showed you in my first tutorial. We'll start by laying our picture onto the cardboard to make sure that it fits. It does. And then we'll want to spend just a few minutes looking at our piece, thinking about the colors that we see in the piece, the feelings that we're trying to convey, and thinking about what colors would complement this picture if we put them in our frame. If you have a simple black and white drawing, you may choose to limit the colors in your frame, maybe even painting the whole frame black. Or you might choose to do a bright and colorful frame that's in sharp contrast to your drawing. Since my drawing has a lot of colors, I could choose to continue these colors out into my frame, or I could pick one color scheme and use that throughout, say 3 different shades of blue. For this frame, I think that's what I'm going to try. So I'll put my drawing aside for now, but I don't want to put it too far away because I'm going to need to keep referring back to it, both for color and for size. I'm going to use the coloring techniques that I showed you in my Easy Advanced Coloring tutorial. If you haven't watched that video yet, check it out. I think you'll find it useful. We'll start by layering our colors, going from lightest to darkest, using marker first, followed by colored pencil, and lastly, crayon. We want to use our light colors first because it's easy to cover light colors with darker crayons, but it's a lot harder to cover darker colors with a lighter pencil or crayon. We want to build up our colors in layers, using light pressure blending first. Darker colors come later, and heavy pressure blending comes later as well. If we color too dark or too hard from the beginning, it will be difficult to add additional colors later, and our frame will wind up looking not quite as interesting. When we color, we want to make sure that we are working all the way to the edge of our frame. So we'll probably want to lay newspaper or scrap paper underneath our cardboard to prevent us from coloring on the table. I'm using this scrap piece of wood to protect my workstation. Fun fact, a cookie sheet makes a great portable art tray. We want to make sure that we are coloring far enough inwards towards the center of our cardboard that there won't be any brown base color showing when we lay our artwork down. So some of what we're coloring will get covered up by our artwork, but that's okay. We're not drawing a picture right now. We are just making line and color patterns. So if some of what we're doing gets lost behind our picture, it's no big deal. To make sure that we don't see any brown color, we want to lay our paper down on top of our cardboard after we've drawn and colored our basic frame. We need to check our work early and often so that we can catch any mistakes. Ultimately, it's up to you how you decide to color your picture frame. All right, let's check it out. I have a feeling we might be done. If we want to, we can put a couple of tape balls down, get our picture to stick. These are just temporary. These will come off in a second. So don't stick them down too hard. I like that. What do you guys think? Is it ready to hang? I think I need just a little bit more. Introducing a new color now, late in the game. Red violet coming into play. I like this pretty well. I like this little bit of color that's happening on my white border. Sometimes we discover things like this that we like that we weren't planning to do. I wouldn't even need to do that everywhere. I could just find select places around my border. Add just a little color here and there. Still want some of that white to show, so once again, quit while I'm ahead. Be careful not to overwork things. It's critical. So often it is my downfall. Okay, One cool thing about crayon is you can scrape it away, especially when we've built up layers like this, so I might be able to do it with my marker cap. And do a little bit of scratching into my frame. Is ready to be attached to its frame permanently. Ooh, I see one little bit of cardboard up there. Shake that in. So now I want to take my tape off of the back of this picture. Can save these tape balls for later. We might need them again. Eventually we'll need to throw them away, but hang on to them for a little while. Once our frame is completely colored and we've double, triple checked to make sure that we can't see any cardboard showing through, now it is time to Mod Podge our artwork directly on top of our frame. Now, a few things to know about Mod Podge. Number one, it's stinky, very stinky. It's so stinky that it might make you feel ill if you smell it for very long. So if you can, try to work in a well-ventilated area or open a window. Second, it's kind of messy. So you want to make sure that you have scrap paper or newspaper underneath your cardboard to protect your table before you start working with the Mod Podge. But the good news is, if you do accidentally get some on the table, it's really easy to clean up with soap and water. I am done coloring. I'm going to move my coloring supplies out of the way. And to get started, we just pour a little bit of the Mod Podge into our bowl. Want to make sure our bowl is clean.
Now, if you don't have store-bought Mod Podge at home, you can make your own by mixing 3/4 cup of Elmer's school glue and 1/4 cup water. The store-bought Mod Podge works a lot better though, so try to get that if you can.
Want to make sure our brush is clean as well. This brush is kind of hard and crunchy, so I'm just going to run it under some water. I'll be right back.
I'm going to start by applying a generous layer of Mod Podge over our entire frame. Then we want to press our picture down onto the frame. You want to try to get all of the air bubbles and creases out of your picture. So I like to start by pressing from the center outward until my picture is as flat as it can be. And paint over the whole entire thing with Mod Podge once again. We need to work quickly because the Mod Podge will dry pretty fast. When you initially put the Mod Podge on your picture, you're going to feel like you ruined it because when the Mod Podge comes out of the jar, it's an opaque white. But don't worry, it will dry clear with a little bit of a shimmer, so it will help to make your artwork look more like it's behind glass. I like to wait to start this project until I can make 2 or 3 frames at a time. The frame that I'm working on right now was done in oil pastel. I chose a warm color scheme to contrast this black and white no tan that I made of construction paper. I'll be showing you how to create one of these in an upcoming lesson. You can use the Mod Podge as a sealer if you make a collage out of construction paper. I like to use a glue stick for construction paper collages because Elmer's school glue is kind of wet and it tends to make my paper curl. But the downside of the glue stick is that sometimes the paper doesn't stay stuck. So in this case, I'm having to go underneath the pieces with Mod Podge and stick them down again. And then I'm covering up the pieces with Mod Podge to seal them to my black paper and to my frame.
Sometimes as your artwork dries, the cardboard may begin to bend or curl. If this happens, you can gently bend your artwork as it's drying to try to get it to flatten on its own. Otherwise, you can put your artwork underneath a heavy book overnight after it's dried.
If our artwork was going to hang in a real art gallery, there would be a piece of wire strung across the back of our canvas or picture frame. This would be so the gallery could hang our artwork from a hook or a nail. We are going to use string instead of wire. So we want to cut a piece of string that's just slightly longer than the width of our picture. My string is about 1 inch longer on either side. Then I'm going to take my painter tape and tape my string to the back of my frame. Now I want to tape my string close to the side of my frame and in the top third of my picture. So my string will be closer to the top of my picture than it is to the bottom. We want to make sure that our string is not pulled as tight as it could be, but we also want to make sure that it's not too loose. We want our string to be completely hidden on the back side of our frame.
Now, if you're not allowed to pound nails in your walls, you can still use the tape loop method to hang this artwork. Blue painter's tape works quite well because it peels away cleanly. So if you stick this tape to your wall, when it comes time to take your picture down, it won't leave any sticky residue or film, and it won't peel away the paint from the walls either. If you used lightweight cardboard from a cereal box like I did, your artwork should be light enough to hang by this tape without being in danger of falling off the wall. If you use slightly heavier cardboard, you might need to put more than 4 tape loops on the back of your frame. I hope you found this tutorial helpful in turning your living space into your very own art gallery. Of course, if we were submitting our artwork to a real gallery, we wouldn't want to put our pictures on cardboard. We will want to use wood, canvas panels, or picture frames where we can present our artwork behind glass. But when we're displaying artwork at home, we don't need to be that fancy. We can use recycled materials and creativity to make our artwork shine.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can catch all of my art tutorials. I'll have another one coming soon. Cheers!